Well, good morning and welcome to City Talk. It's a weekly program that we air here on the Waco City Cable Channel, but it's also a radio program. It's a podcast. It's a great way for us to communicate what's going on in Waco and how our citizens can benefit from some of the projects and things that are going on in the city. I'm Larry Holsey, Director of Municipal Information and Communication for the City of Waco. I host this program. Today I'd like to welcome Patricia Wilson, who is a professor at the Baylor Law School. And today we're going to be talking about an event that I know we've helped promote and great opportunity for our citizens to participate in the People's Law School. Good morning and thank you for being with us, first of all.
Well, Larry, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate the help that the city gives us in getting the word out about this.
Well, Baylor and Waco, the city of Waco, have a great partnership. It's never been so good that we've worked together and got so many great projects going on, great people, staff-wise, like yourself and others that love Waco, that Waco is their home. But it's also, we forget many times, the wonderful educational complex, I hate to say it that way, but is out at in the campus area. Baylor Law School is renowned for great stuff. Brag on Baylor Law School just a little bit, and let's get some good kudos going here.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. We do have a wonderful program for people that are attending law school to get a law degree and plan to practice law. We really pride ourselves in preparing our students to be good lawyers, to be good practicing lawyers, and to have a servant's attitude. We really do train our students in all sorts of ways beyond just what the law is. We encourage them to be leaders in their community and to really have that servant's heart. And I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with a great faculty, to have great students, and to turn out lawyers who go out and do wonderful things in our community locally, statewide, and even nationwide.
Well, and I can attest to that because, number one, our mayor is a graduate from Baylor Law
Absolutely.
School. So he's served on the city council for 5 years, and now he's our mayor.
And the former mayor.
Exactly. And Josh Bordereau is also
Yes.
On staff over there now. Not only did he attend and go to Baylor Law School, but he's on our city council as well. So and we've had others, and I'm not going to get into that or I'll forget somebody and I'll be in trouble. But those are the current ones that are really using, just as you indicated, the giving heart, giving back to the community, and using a lot of the wisdom that they've gained while at Baylor and at the law school to be able to instill and help our citizens.
Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic law school, and for anyone who is contemplating law school, for anyone who has children or grandchildren who are contemplating law school, I encourage them to look at our program and see what we have to offer.
Absolutely. You can't do any better as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with that.
There you go. Well, let's get busy here. We've got a lot of great opportunities, and what this is, coming up here on February the 13th, from 9:15 to Saturday, from 9:15 to 12:45. There's going to be, this year virtually. They're not going to be able to come out to your beautiful law school and see it in person. So it's had to change a little bit. Talk a little bit about that change, but it's also opened some opportunities to increase and expand it. And then we'll get into the specifics and the classes that people can take advantage of.
Well, you're absolutely right that we did have to make some changes. COVID has changed lots of things, and so we can't do it in person the way we've done for the past 15 years. This will be our 16th year.
Really?
It is, and we look forward to it every year. We know that people look forward to attending, and so we didn't want to disappoint them by not having it this year. And it forced us to rethink the People's Law School, but we are going to offer it virtually, so nobody should come to the law school, but they should sign on from their homes or wherever they get onto Wi-Fi or internet, whatever they do, and they will be able to participate kind of the way it has occurred in the past, but it'll be, of course, in a virtual setting.
I think everybody's kind of gotten used to Zoom meetings, Zoom webinars, and things like that. I know here at the city we certainly have. But the way to get to it is go to baylor.edu/law. Law school or law?
Just law.
Just law. And there you'll find, I'm sure, on the homepage that you have for the law school, talks about the People's Law School from Baylor, and a great opportunity.
That is correct. You can go to that website, baylor.edu/law. If you Google Baylor People's Law School, it will also take you to our page. Either way, you should be able to get to specifically the page for the People's Law School, which will have a description of all the courses that we're offering. It will have information about everything that one might need to know for this upcoming People's Law School.
The Zoom links and things like that.
The Zoom links will not be available until a day or two before the 13th,
Okay.
but they will be available at that website.
Sure. Well, that's great. And the topics, and we're going to go through and discuss, and let you describe briefly what each one of them is. There's probably 8, 9, 10, 11, there's about 15 or so. Very topical subjects that everybody should be interested in a way. About how long do each one of these will the class actually be?
Each class will be 1 hour in length. It gives the instructor enough time to go through some basics and to impart some real key points that they've decided are things that are important for people to know, and hopefully leave time for question and answer. Again, people will not be able to pose their questions the way they would if we were in person, but they will be able to use the chat feature.
Chat feature works great on a lot of things, and
It does.
If something comes to your mind while you're in the midst of a class, you can, instead of holding up your hand, you can go ahead and chat right there, and then it'll be addressed from there. Well, that's great. Let's get going on, because I'm just going to read the topic, if you don't mind, and you'll give a little brief synopsis or whatever you want to call it of what kind of will be covered on that. First one right off the bat is civil liberties and COVID. Hello.
Well, certainly with the COVID being on everyone's mind, it's almost like you can't get away from the fact that we're in the midst of a pandemic. And one of the things that we know came up a lot were questions about what rights one has, particularly in light of the mask mandates and various other things. And what we wanted to do with this particular course is, one, to recognize that there are lots of questions about COVID, and there's some other courses that address COVID-related issues. But particularly in this course, to look at what rights do people have, when can the government, whether we're talking about the city or the state, come in and make adjustments to those rights. What does the Constitution say? What actually is the law in that regard?
Well, I can think of a lot of questions right there that would be good. So, but a great topical subject, very current, and talking about civil liberties and how that relates to COVID. Another one, the next one here is consumer law. We're all consumers, and we all sometimes get bogged down in a lot of the things that are going on, but we don't know sometimes the rights we do have with a merchant or things like that. Talk about consumer law.
Consumer law is one of the courses we offer fairly regularly because everybody is a consumer of something. Whether we're talking about goods or services, things from as little as $5 to thousands of dollars. And Texas has a statute called the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act. The instructor will talk about that as well as some other consumer protection statutes to provide attendees a basic understanding of what rights one has as a consumer.
Yeah. We all need that, and it would be great helpful for that. Next one, contesting your property taxes. This has been an issue that a lot of people certainly have been interested in now because the property valuations have been changing and rising maybe, and so you need to know, and the law school is going to be able to help you know at least what your rights are and how to maybe handle it.
Well, that's exactly right. We all have to pay taxes, but I don't know of many people who want to pay more than what they have to pay. And the idea is to help those who think that that their properties may have been overvalued. So to go in and know how they should go about contesting their property taxes. And this particular course will be presented by one of my colleagues as well as one of the appraisers from the tax office. So you're going to get a good, valuable information with that one.
Yeah, boots on the ground type people. They're maybe across the table when you're doing your contesting, as it may be, and they'll be able to answer the questions which they commonly get and guide you how to be maybe more successful at it because you've gotten your act together maybe before.
Exactly. I think that, we want to perhaps think of the appraiser's office as, they just want to get as much as they can. But I think they want to be fair about it, and that's the idea. How to make sure that we're paying what we owe and not anything more.
And do it in a civil manner. I think that's the key thing. And I've done this very thing, and I found them to be very congenial and very interested and listening good. And I think that's the main thing. So, disabilities and the ADA in the time of COVID. Interesting. because the Disabilities Act obviously provides certain things, ADA accept compliance and things like that, but COVID throws a blanket on some of that to maybe changes things and makes things a little difficult.
That is correct. In this particular course, we will have one of our local employment lawyers talking about it from the employment standpoint. There are lots of questions about what rights employees have. Can they take time off because of concerns about COVID? Can they demand to work at home because of concerns about COVID? Can employers require vaccines? All sorts of questions surrounding COVID, and the instructor for this particular course will be looking at the kinds of questions she gets with respect to COVID and talking about it specifically from the standpoint of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Well, I can only tell you, just since the topics we've already gone through right now, you've got everybody in our whole viewing and listening audience, all the citizens, let's just put it that way, that all of these will be of some value and different type of thing. The next one grabs me real good, elder law, because I'm in that elder law category, even though I'm not living in some of the facilities. But you're talking about long-term care facilities and planning and Medicaid and all that kind of stuff. So talk about elder law.
This is another one of the courses that we offer fairly regularly, in part because we know that what someone doesn't have an issue about today, I mean, if you are your 40s or early 50s, then you're probably not necessarily thinking about those things, but things can change. And the instructor here has been teaching elder law at the law school for a number of years. This is what she practices, and she will address the kinds of issues that people do need to think about, either because they themselves are senior citizens or because they are caring for people who have those kinds of questions from a legal standpoint.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The next one is actually a two-part class, two different classes. You have Family Law 1 and Family Law 2. I think this is kind of something you work with, don't you?
I do. I teach family law at the law school along with employment law courses. I'm not teaching any of the courses in this year's People's Law School, but the person who is teaching the two family law courses is a local practitioner, and she will address in one course the issues surrounding divorce, and in the other course the issues that surround children in terms of custody and child support and visitation and those kinds of things.
And all of these classes, I'll kind of preface and come back and say, this is not legal advice necessarily. This is just telling you what the law is and how an attorney can maybe help get you through situations and whatever else. So you're not going to give out necessarily legal advice. That's always in the hands of a lawyer, but these are the things. Kind of talk on that just a little bit.
You're correct. This is not legal advice. When I contact our instructors and ask them if they'd be willing to come, what I always encourage them to do is to think about the kinds of questions that they get when people learn that they practice in a particular area of the law. So that it's more general information. It is foundational information that will help someone perhaps understand an area of the law that they don't understand, or perhaps identify if they've got a legal issue. But ultimately, you're correct, the presenters are not representing anyone, but the information they provide will come from the fact that they have experience in that area and have a sense of what people generally want to know about that area of the law.
That's really great. Guardianship, the legal process of one person in dealing with, maybe it's an elderly person, or it could be anything. So guardianship, talk about that.
Well, guardianship, as you suggested, could be for elderly people. It could be for people that are not elderly, including children that may have cognitive or physical disabilities and can't care for themselves or can't take care of their own finances. And so the instructor for this course, once again, she, like all of the presenters that we've invited to present, this is the area that they practice in, and they know the ins and outs of it. And so what she will be doing is talking about what guardianship is, what guardianship means, what one does to, in fact, be appointed a guardian, as well as what the responsibilities are for being a guardian. It's a high responsibility to, in fact, act on behalf of someone else.
Absolutely. If you just joined us, we're visiting with Patricia Wilson, who is a professor in the Baylor Law School, and we're talking about the Baylor People's Law School. It's coming up this Saturday, February the 13th. It'll be virtual as it may be, but you can sign up at baylor.edu/law, and there you'll be able to join virtually by Zoom and some of the webinars and things like you're probably used to anyway. And be a participant in a number of these classes. Now, real quickly, you mentioned before we went on the air the fact that if they're not able to participate live in each one, they will be recorded, I guess, or you can go at least follow the lecture as it is. Is it later on?
That is our plan. Our plan is that each of the lectures, the presentations, will be recorded, and then sometime in the next week following the People's Law School or thereafter, the recorded sessions will be available on our YouTube channel. And when that's available, you will find that information on our website.
So it's not, you don't have to, like in the past when you're in person, you have to sometimes choose 2 or 3 because that's what you have time to attend in a 3-hour overall session. But with COVID and with the virtual thing, we've gained something good out of COVID.
That is one of the advantages, that you don't have to choose. You don't have to do even the 3 courses that you might have been able to do in person. You don't have to do them on the same day. You can come to 1 or 2 live and then watch as many as you wish on the YouTube channel when they're available.
Absolutely. Great information. Okay, let's continue on down because we still have another group of lessons here that are really, or courses as it may be. Introduction to Special Education Law. Special education is, again, there's specific people that may need this, but they've never had the opportunity unless they go talk to an attorney to learn about it.
Well, it's one of those things that I think many parents never delve into unless they have a child that has special needs. And it is a world into itself in terms of the lingo and the process and everything related to that. What this instructor will be addressing is all of that. The things that parents need to know is what rights the children have in terms of education, because they do have a right to an education, and navigating that whole system of special education. And again, not just those kids that are particularly disabled, but any sort of learning disability where, in fact, there may be some additional services that the child is entitled to.
Yeah, you learn exactly what's available that maybe other people have not told you about.
That's correct.
Landlord-tenant law. Now, this is a big one because there are a lot of people who do rent. They're paying their monthly rent. Maybe they get into trouble because I think not only this class is going to talk about the traditional landlord-tenant relationship, but then what special things COVID has allowed and allows the tenant and the landlord, to exercise certain rules. So let's talk about that.
Well, this is yet another course that we offer fairly regularly, but there is the COVID twist. We know that there have been the mandates that have come from the federal government about evictions and what can be done. One of the things that I believe that this instructor is going to do is to address those things, as well as the issues that normally arise when you have landlords and tenants and they see things differently. So that's the plan for this course.
Anytime you get into a dispute, you think lawyer, things like that, but there's actually several different things that you can do besides going to a real trial as it is. There's mediation, arbitration, and ADR, which I'm reading here, so I'm not this smart. Alternative dispute resolution. That's ADR. Talk to us about mediation, arbitration, and alternative dispute resolution.
Well, you're correct that going to court isn't the only way to resolve an issue. In fact, it's often not even the best way to do so. Lots of people hear those terms floated around, mediation and arbitration and alternative dispute resolution, without knowing exactly what that means. And that's what the presenter for this particular course will do, is talk about what the differences between mediation versus arbitration. There's some other, and both of those are alternative dispute resolution methods, but there's some other ones as well, what the implications are, how you know which one is right for your particular matter, as well as what options there are in the community, because we have some great resources in the community for alternative dispute resolution.
That's great, because again, there's different either binding or non-binding, or just to help a dispute that maybe doesn't need to rise to to a court battle as it may be.
Exactly.
That's and the law provides for those types of the mediation, arbitration, such. Freedom from discrimination versus religious liberty. That's an interesting topic because, think about all the time, we all consider we are all able in our country to freedom of worship and those liberties, sanctuaries and things like this and protection, but freedom from discrimination as well. Talk about how that merges together.
Well, one of the things that we've discovered over the years is that there really is a thirst to understand some of the constitutional issues that we see arising all the time. I think everybody does or should respect and support religious liberty. Mm-hmm. But one person's religious liberty might be viewed as discrimination by someone else. And what this instructor, who always does a very good job, will do is to look at the intersection of those two areas.
I can tell it in something like this, if nothing else, it sparks the conversation, even though it may be virtual and a little more difficult. But it sparks the thinking and delving into a situation that opens the eyes of those who are participating in things that they hadn't thought about in those areas. Yeah.
We're not trying to change anybody's mind about anything when we do courses like that, as much as to make sure that when they're engaged in discussions with other people, they've got accurate information about what the Constitution says, what other aspects of the law say, and then they can form their opinion based on accurate understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's one that I think everybody would be interested in and certainly needs help with sometimes, starting your business. A lot of people have the entrepreneurship in their heart and their mind, and they maybe have a little bit of money somewhere that they want to start a business, but they need to recognize all the things involved. I know we have people call us from time to time wanting to know, where do I get a business license and how do I open up a business and that type of thing. So starting a business is something everybody probably would like to sign up for.
That I have toyed with the idea of starting a business. I've never done that. Yeah. But there are lots of things that go into planning to open a business, including what type of entity do you want to have? Do you want to have a sole proprietorship? Do you want to have a corporation? What's an S corp? And other things that ought to be thought about. And the instructor for this particular course is someone who has been practicing in that area, one of my colleagues on the faculty now. So you get both the academic view as well as the practical view.
Absolutely. And that's what's great, because the practical is what we have to deal with, but then bringing in the law and that type of thing, because like you mentioned, proprietorship, partnerships, corporations, LLCs, all those kind of things are out there to help protect individuals, but sometimes you don't need to go all the way with one if you're just going to have something simple. So I'm sure this will help identify and define those for people who are interested in starting a small business, or even a large business for that matter. We love people doing business in Waco, and we hope, just as taking it off the record right now, we want everybody to deal with local businesses as best as possible. That's one of the things. Next one is Texas community property. Everybody says, well, Texas is a community property state. So how is it, and what is it, and how does it protect us?
I think it's something that people need to understand. Mm-hmm. Community property exists only between married couples, with the question being, what property is my community property versus my separate property? What does it mean that it's my community property and my husband has this community property? What does all of that mean? And so the instructor for this particular course is one of our local family law attorneys, who will look at that, because often it becomes an issue, not so much while the couple is married, but if they're contemplating divorce, what that means for what they will have following the divorce.
Yeah. You get very intricate and very involved as things are, and it might be, I'm just going to say, a life changer to maybe try to reconcile or whatever else, rather than taking the big financial hit or things like that.
I think there's that aspect. There's also just planning. Mm-hmm. Couples can always plan before they ever get to the point of divorce as to what will be community property, what will not be community property, and how you go about, in fact, making those determinations and then documenting them, so that if you end up in a situation of divorce, that will be already taken care of.
Sad as it is, there are those who like to take advantage of especially the weak people, and I'm going to say the elderly, because they're they're needing communication, they're whatever else. And I'm talking about scammers. And we're all challenged with scams because we're hit with them all the time. But then COVID has brought in some new aspects, some new people who are out there to get you and take advantage of you. And you have a class that actually is going to be dealing with top scams, talking about those during the pandemic. And how sad that is, but it's a reality.
It is the reality. We know that anytime there's some disaster or some tragedy, there are those vultures who are out there waiting to prey on people. And the instructor for this particular course will look at some of the scams, particularly the online scams. We're all doing all sorts of things online that we never thought we would be doing. Certainly people are targeting us for things that they want to sell us to help us, survive the pandemic. And that's what she will address. What to look out for, how to protect yourself.
And that's something we all need. I had one of our guests several months ago was head of the Better Business Bureau, and they deal with scams all the time. And just warning everybody, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Oh, yeah.
And so some of those just warnings, and especially for us elderly people, we need to make sure that we don't let somebody take our money, take advantage of us. And this is a great program too. So top scams during the COVID-19. And last but not least, wills and estate planning, something everybody has to think about because we're all going to die someday. And what are you going to do with all the properties? And it may not be a great wealth, but it's even a car or something like that. What's going to happen? And how important is a will? And what is an estate? And how to plan for that? Because you talked earlier about the community law, community property, and things like that. That's one stage of it. And then again, an individual, a couple, overall family. Estate planning is good to carry on whatever you've earned and accumulated in your life. So it's not just lost to maybe taxes and things like that.
Well, the sad truth is we are all going to die. Mm-hmm. And I think perhaps the sadder thing is to not have planned and prepared for what happens to the things that one has accumulated throughout life. The only way you can have a chance of getting the things that you have accumulated, whether it's money or money or property or sentimental items, the only way to have a chance of ensuring that those things go to the people that you love or the organizations, the schools or whatever, the charities that you want to benefit, is to have a will. Mm-hmm. And wills are really important for everybody, no matter how much money one has. So that's what this instructor will talk about, the kinds of things you want to think about. I'm sure he's going to encourage you, whether you use his services or not, to contact an attorney, get your will done, get it done correctly so that when that day comes, things will happen the way you wanted them to happen.
Absolutely. Just a plethora, is a good word, I guess, of knowledge available to be learned through the People's Law School at Baylor University, coming up this Saturday, February the 13th. It's all virtual, so if you have a computer that's got the internet, and you can get on there and to go to baylor.edu/law. And on Friday or Saturday for sure, you can get going and sign up for any of these, but it's a good idea to probably get in advance and take a look at it to see which ones you could like to get into and get actively involved. Use the chat feature and ask questions that are maybe not being covered and learn about great things that the Baylor Law professors, faculty, and guests, as you mentioned, are all providing our community so we can have free advice, just not necessarily legal advice, but to help you understand better what the law is.
That's right. Registration is not required, but if they register, they will get a reminder email and a link to the links to get onto the website or to the webinar.
Which is really critical. Patricia
Absolutely.
Wilson, with a Baylor Law professor, one of the many out there that make so many great people be our community leaders when they, like I said, our mayor, Dylan Meek, and Josh Bordereau, just two people who are graduates, and Josh is still out there in a teaching role. I know he works with veterans, I know.
He does.
I want to thank you, Patricia, for being here and everything you do, and thanks for hosting and helping host the People's Law School at Baylor University. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we hope you'll join us again next week for more information about the City of Waco on City Talk. This program is produced by the Municipal Information Department of the City of Waco and is provided as a public service by this station.